Usually when we think about the very beginning of everything, right, like the ultimate creation of the universe,
Right.
we tend to imagine it like a cosmic starting pistol. We picture this absolute silence of definitive pull of a trigger by some outside force, and then bang.
The race begins.
Exactly. The race begins. Reality just starts ticking forward, expanding out into the dark.
It is a very clean, very linear way of visualizing things.
Yeah.
And we naturally default to that imagery because, well, our human experience is linear.
Right. It makes sense to us.
It provides a certain comfort, I think, to imagine a definitive who's standing completely outside of the concept of time, deliberately setting the whole complex machine into motion.
But the moment you step into the world of theoretical physics or quantum mechanics and the fringes of cosmology, that comforting linear imagery just starts to fall apart.
Oh, completely.
Suddenly, you aren't looking at a starting pistol anymore. You are looking into a mirror.
Which is terrifying for some people.
Right. And that is exactly the mind-bending journey we are taking you on in today's deep dive. We are exploring the cosmological first cause.
That classic philosophical argument about how the universe fundamentally got started.
Exactly. But we are looking specifically at a radical interpretation known as the way of PoE.
Which is a framework that completely challenges the traditional theological view of a supernatural creator.
It doesn't just tweak the existing idea, right?
No, it completely rewrites the script of how existence operates. The way of PoE offers a scientifically grounded, yet highly provocative, look at reality itself.
Merging the strange laws of quantum mechanics with the origins of the universe.
Yes, and it introduces the concept of consciousness not as an accident, but as a fundamental force of nature.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand how consciousness shaped the universe, we have to actually rewind the clock all the way back.
All the way.
We have to understand what existed before the universe. And according to the way of PoE, the primordial state wasn't just a black, empty void.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't just a lack of matter and energy, it was a state of perfect symmetry.
Right, and we really need to redefine how we think about nothingness here.
Because it's not what you'd expect.
Exactly. When we hear the word nothingness, we tend to imagine an empty room where someone just took all the furniture out.
Just dead space.
But in physics, and particularly in this framework, nothingness is better understood as a perfect, flawless balance.
They're like equal forces.
Imagine every positive force and every negative force perfectly canceling each other out to zero. It is a state of absolute mathematical equilibrium.
Let me see if I can visualize this for you. Imagine a perfectly sharpened pencil.
Okay, good analogy.
Now imagine taking that pencil and balancing it perfectly on its microscopic graphite tip inside a totally sealed, perfectly still vacuum chamber.
Right.
It is in a state of perfect symmetry. It's completely balanced, looking exactly the same from every angle, but it is also incredibly fragile.
Highly fragile.
Because of the laws of quantum mechanics, that pencil cannot balance there forever. It physically has to fall eventually.
The concept you were touching on is inherent quantum fluctuation.
Right.
Even in a perfect vacuum, reality is never entirely still.
There's always a buzz.
Exactly. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle dictates that you cannot have a state of absolute zero-energy stillness. There will always be a microscopic jitter.
A tiny vibration.
So that primordial symmetry, that perfectly balanced pencil, was inherently unstable. The potential for it to fall, for the symmetry to break, is baked into the fundamental structure of existence itself.
But hold on, let me push back on that for a second. I can wrap my head around a pencil falling over because of a quantum jitter in a vacuum.
Sure.
But how does a random subatomic wobble turn into an entire universe? How do we jump from a tiny loss of balance to galaxies, supermassive black holes, DNA, and, you listening to this deep dive?
What's fascinating here is how this framework completely redefines our understanding of cause and effect.
How so?
Well, we are conditioned to expect linear causation. A billiard ball hits another billiard ball, which drops into the pocket.
Cause and effect. A to B.
Exactly. But the emergence of the universe from this perfect symmetry represents a holistic view of causation. The initial quantum wobble didn't just cause a single chain reaction.
What'd you do?
It unleashed an inherent drive towards self-organization. The way of PoE posits that the first cause shifts from being a deity standing outside the system.
To a what?
Yes. It is the inherent dynamism, the inescapable physical necessity of reality, to move from unstable symmetry into complex asymmetry.
So reality itself was essentially a wound-up spring, physically compelled by its own instability to uncoil.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it, actually. There's no divine hand reaching into the void to flick the pencil.
The pencil was fundamentally designed by its own nature to fall.
Exactly. But the direction it fell, and specifically which version of reality uncoiled, brings us to a massive conceptual leap.
Right, because we are moving from that initial breaking of symmetry to the actual crystallization of the specific universe we live in today. When that cosmic pencil fell, how did one specific reality get chosen out of all the possible mathematical outcomes?
And this brings in a concept from quantum mechanics called the sum over histories.
Which is an idea originally formulated by the physicist Richard Feynman.
Right. To understand this, you have to look at how a particle behaves before it is observed.
Okay.
In the quantum realm, a particle traveling from point A to point B doesn't just take a single straight path.
It doesn't.
No. The math tells us that until it is measured, it theoretically takes all possible paths simultaneously.
Wait, all of them?
It takes the straight path, it loops around the moon, it bounces off Jupiter, and it does all of this at the exact same time. It exists as a massive, hazy cloud of probabilities.
So applying that to the creation of everything, the wave PoE suggests that at its inception, the universe existed in a state of pure potentiality.
Yes.
It wasn't just one single universe expanding out from the Big Bang. It was a multitude of potential realities, all existing simultaneously as superimposed probabilities.
Okay.
You have a universe where gravity is a little stronger and crushes everything immediately. You have a universe where antimatter won out over regular matter.
You have a universe where nothing but a soup of helium exists forever.
This is what physicists call the universal wave function.
It is the mathematical description of all those superimposed potential universes existing at once.
Right.
And in classical quantum mechanics, a wave function remains as a cloud of probability until something interacts with it.
An event we call the collapse of the wave function.
Exactly. And this is where the way of PoE introduces its most provocative element.
The concept of the quantum minefield.
Yes.
Wait, so are we saying the universe essentially hung in a state of maybe until something was there to look at it?
It is more active than just a state of maybe. It is a physical superposition of all possibilities. But yes,
Wow.
the way of PoE argues that consciousness is not just a biological byproduct of millions of years of evolution.
It's not just a neat trick our brains developed to help us avoid predators.
No, consciousness is a fundamental property of reality. It's basic to the universe as gravity or electromagnetism.
It's heavy.
It is. And according to this framework, the universal wave function collapsed into a single concrete reality when one of those possible histories, specifically the history that included the emergence of consciousness, became real.
So the act of observation is what forced the universe to crystallize out of the void.
Yes.
But if consciousness is a fundamental field, does that mean the field was always there, waiting to observe?
It means that consciousness is the ultimate first cause.
Oh, wow.
The existence of the physical universe is entirely contingent upon the presence of observers to collapse its wave function.
It shatters the boundary we intuitively draw between the observer and the observed.
Completely. You aren't just a passive entity looking at a vast universe. Your very capacity to look is the mechanism that forces the universe to exist in a defined state.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if consciousness is the actual mechanism that collapsed the universal wave function, there has to be some kind of footprint left behind, right?
You would think so.
Some physical evidence or structural anomaly in our universe that points to this. And the way of PoE makes some incredibly specific, highly unusual claims about the physical structure of our universe.
Very specific.
But to make sense of them, we have to talk about how quantum mechanics treats time.
Time is the crucial variable here. In our everyday lives, time is an arrow pointing in one direction.
Right, you can shatter an egg, but you cannot unshatter an egg.
Exactly. However, when you look at the foundational equations of quantum mechanics, like the Schrödinger equation, time is entirely symmetric.
Meaning the math works exactly the same whether time is moving forward into the future or backward into the past.
Yes.
The equation doesn't break if you reverse the flow.
That is the mechanical reality of the quantum level. The microscopic laws of physics do not distinguish between past and future.
Which is so hard to picture.
It is. And this leads to a stunning interpretation regarding the cosmic microwave background, or CMB.
Right, and for the listener, the CMB is the residual heat from the Big Bang.
It is literally the first flash of light that ever existed, released when the universe finally cooled down enough for photons to travel freely.
Okay, so what does PoE say about it?
The way of PoE asserts that when this first flash of light occurred, it materialized in the visible light spectrum, specifically because it was going to be observed by human consciousness.
Okay, I have to stop and push back on the timeline here.
I figured you would.
Because the Big Bang and that first flash of light happened 13.8 billion years before humans, or human eyes, ever existed.
Right.
If time is perfectly symmetric at the quantum level, are we saying that our observation now, peering through our telescopes today, retroactively caused the light at the beginning of the universe to be visible?
This raises an important question, and it is arguably the most challenging mechanical concept in this entire philosophy.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It requires you to completely abandon the idea of an objective, observer-independent reality that just hums along without us.
Okay.
If time is symmetric at the quantum level, and if the entire universe operates as a single, interconnected wave function, then the emergence of conscious observers billions of years after the Big Bang can theoretically send ripples backwards through time.
That is just wild.
The act of measurement today dictates the state of the universe at its inception. Cause and effect become a closed loop rather than a straight line.
My brain is officially doing backflips.
It takes a minute to process.
It's essentially saying that the universe is like a massive, interconnected organism, and the present can physically author the past.
Yes.
And that's not the only anomaly we need to discuss. There is a structural quirk in the cosmos known as the quadrupole and octupole anomaly.
Right. In mainstream cosmology, this is sometimes formally referred to as the axis of evil.
Axis of evil because it throws a massive wrench into our standard models of how the universe should look.
Exactly. When scientists map the temperature fluctuations of the cosmic microwave background across the entire sky, they break these hot and cold spots down into mathematical patterns called harmonics.
Specifically the dipole, quadrupole, and octupole.
Right.
And in a random, expanding universe, those hot and cold spots should be completely scattered, right?
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't be any discernible pattern pointing in any specific direction.
They should be entirely isotropic, meaning the same in every direction, but they aren't.
No.
When cosmologists look at the quadrupole and octupole mapping, the planes of these massive cosmic temperature fluctuations align almost perfectly with each other.
Which is strange enough on its own.
But even more inexplicably, they align with the ecliptic plane of our solar system.
Meaning, the fundamental temperature structure of the entire observable universe seems to be uniquely oriented around the tilt of our specific solar system.
Yes.
Which is absolutely wild. Most mainstream cosmologists write that off as a statistical fluke, right?
Or maybe a localized measurement error.
Because the idea that the cosmic dawn cares about the tilt of our tiny solar system violates everything we know about our place in the universe. We are supposed to be random observers on a random rock.
But under the way of PoE, this anomaly is not a statistical fluke.
It's deliberate.
It is a structural necessity.
Yeah.
If conscious observation from our solar system is the mechanism that retroactively collapsed the universal wave function, then the origin point of that observation would logically become the mathematical focal point of the resulting reality.
It physically puts the observer at the geometric center of creation.
It does.
That perfectly flips the script on something called the anthropic principle.
Yes.
You might have heard of the anthropic principle before. It's the observation that the universe seems incredibly finely tuned to support life.
Right.
If the strength of gravity or the mass of an electron were even slightly different, stars wouldn't form, carbon wouldn't exist, and life would be impossible.
Traditionally, science struggles with the anthropic principle.
It does.
It is usually either used by theologians to argue for a divine designer who perfectly tuned the cosmic dials for us, or it's explained away by physicists using the multiverse theory.
And the multiverse argument says there are infinite random universes bubbling into existence, and we just happen to live in the one that luckily got the math right for life.
Exactly. But the way of PoE provides a completely different mechanism.
How so?
We observe this finely tuned universe precisely because it's the only one that could be observed.
Oh, I see.
It's a universe that exists because of us, rather than being designed for us.
Right.
If we weren't mathematically possible in this specific cosmic setup, there would be no consciousness to eventually collapse the wave function, and this universe would have stayed forever as a mathematical ghost in the realm of pure probability.
It is a profound inversion of how we view our place in the cosmos.
It really is.
It elevates conscious existence from being a trivial cosmic accident to being the foundational pillar that holds reality up. Without the observer, there is no stage for the observation to take place on. So what does this all mean? We've covered unstable symmetry, universal wave functions, the bizarre mechanics of symmetric time, and the physical alignment of the entire cosmos around our solar system.
A lot of ground.
But grounding all of this massive theoretical physics into practical reality, why does this matter for you, the person listening right now, as you go about your day?
It fundamentally changes the framework of the meaning and purpose of life.
Yeah.
If the mechanics of this interpretation hold true, your existence is not a localized accident. You are not a speck of dust clinging to a rock in a cold, dead, meaningless void.
You are a biologically required mechanism of the universe's unfolding.
Precisely.
Let me give you an analogy that might make this feel a bit more concrete. Think about how a massive open-world video game works.
Oh, I like this one.
The console doesn't render the entire world at once because that would crash the system. Instead, the rendering engine only generates the mountains, the trees, and the sky when your character turns the camera to look at them. The code exists as potential, but the actual visible reality is entirely dependent on where the player is looking.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize the retroactive collapse of the wave function. The universe is the code, existing in a state of infinite potential.
Your consciousness is the camera.
Where you look, reality is forced to render itself into existence backwards and forwards in time.
And that means you are an integral participant in a grand cosmic narrative. You aren't just moving through a pre-rendered world. Your active choices, your observations, and your attention are continually generating the world around you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it empowers us as what the way of PoE calls conscious co-creators of reality.
Conscious co-creators.
Our actions don't just happen within a passive universe, they actively influence the trajectory of the universe. And this framework gives us a specific evolutionary goal based on a physical mechanism called synergy.
Let's break down synergy because it can sound like a corporate buzzword, but here it has a very specific physical meaning.
Right, definitely not corporate synergy here.
Synergy is the principle that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3.
In physics and biology, we see the universe constantly driven by synergy. Subatomic particles combine to form atoms, which have completely different, more complex properties than the particles alone.
Atoms combine into molecules.
Molecules build living cells.
Cells combine to form a brain capable of consciousness.
Exactly. The universe is physically compelled to increase its synergistic complexity.
And the ultimate destination of that driving force is something called the omega point.
Yes, the omega point is a concept representing the ultimate culmination of human and cosmic potential.
Like the finish line.
More like the theoretical maximum of complexity and connectivity. If consciousness was the force that collapsed the wave function to start the universe, then the continued synergistic evolution of consciousness is driving the universe toward its ultimate purpose.
It's the universe striving for maximum connectivity. It is reality trying to fully wake up, using us as the neurons in its cosmic brain.
We are the universe experiencing itself, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a literal physical mechanism.
That is incredible.
Our ongoing quest for understanding, our scientific inquiries, our moral developments, our technological advancements, they are all mechanisms of a universe desperately trying to understand its own code.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the sheer scale of the journey we've just been on.
It's been a lot.
We started in a state of nothingness, which we discovered was actually an unstable, perfect mathematical symmetry. That symmetry inevitably broke, creating a vast superimposed cloud of infinite potential realities. Then, the quantum minefield consciousness itself acted as the ultimate first cause, collapsing that universal wave function and crystallizing this specific life-permitting universe into existence.
From there, we navigated the counterintuitive mechanics of symmetric time at the quantum level.
Where an active observation today can theoretically shape the cosmos at its inception.
Right, which provided a radically new mechanical lens for understanding anomalies like the axis of evil in the cosmic microwave background.
And the extreme fine-tuning we see in the anthropic principle.
Exactly.
And finally, we arrived back at you, bringing it all home to the realization that we are conscious
We
co-creators.
aren't just passengers.
No. We are the rendering engine of reality, actively driving the evolution of the cosmos toward the ultimate connectivity of the omega point through our choices and our active pursuit of synergy.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And we want to remind you that, according to the very mechanics of the framework we've just discussed, your act of listening to this, your processing and comprehending of this dense information, is in itself an act of consciousness participating in and shaping reality.
Yeah.
The universe is slightly more awake now because you took the time to understand it.
By simply paying attention today, you rendered a little bit more of the world into existence. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day, one that builds on the incredible mechanics we've unpacked. If human consciousness is genuinely powerful enough to reach back through symmetric time, collapse the universal wave function at the dawn of creation, and physically orient the temperature of the cosmos around our tiny solar system, what latent realities might we be collapsing or entirely ignoring right now simply by deciding where to point our collective attention?